Hello, my friends. Well, I'm back and I hope that so are you. So, now, like every month, every week, and almost every day before, we are again bombarded with controversy concerning the Sussexes. There is the matter of the birth certificate and the fact that Rachel Meghan was removed and only the titles remained. We spoke about this already, and I do not have much to add except for one or two things. I've been conducting an experiment. In the past, not regularly and only when there was something really shady about Meghan and Harry's fluff pieces, I would forward the piece to Kensington Palace with a covering note and request an explanation. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only person doing this, and I'm also sure that advisors and aides are staying on top of the latest news and drama. However, every time I've done this, I could count the hours and there would be a response from the palace. Not to me personally, but via a spokesperson or an insider or a royal correspondent and via the media. This time I did the same, and I particularly pointed out that Meghan and Harry's spokesperson used the word dictated, which in effect, and the way it was used, could mean forced. I was not disappointed this time either. Within hours there was a piece in the Mirror in which it stated that the statement caused bewilderment in the palace, and it is said that no such protocol exists. So, in effect, they are saying in the nicest terms possible that Meghan is lying again. And it had also since come out that the change was made by Meghan and her own personal aides. So there you have it. And while we're on the subject, I want to thank a very observant viewer who sent me this. Have a look at number 14. It reads, I certify that the particulars entered above are true to the best of my knowledge and belief. And then it needs to be signed. Now, William also signed William, but after all, William is indeed one of his real names. And he signed it by hand on both the original as well as the copy, and I'm adding both so that you can have a look. However, not so our dear Harry. It is just typed in as Harry. Now how can this be? This is a legal civil document and should be signed with at least one of his real names, or then his real initials. Then at the bottom of the page, under the word caution and the system number, there is no space line. The printing actually overlaps. Now this, in my opinion, shows that not only is the birth certificate faked, null and void, but that it may very well be nothing more than a bad copy, cut and paste job, in my opinion. Okay, now I know a lot of people are saying that, so what? What significance does this have when there are so many other things going on in the world? Well, I would like to refer you to Lady C's last video in which she actually discusses this and the actual importance that it has to everybody, not just the British citizens, but the monarchy and everyone else. It's not about what and how and when it has been changed, but it is about the truth. The current law still states that a child must be born from the body. Okay? So what does this indicate? We already have a suspicion that Archie was not born from the body of Rachel Meghan Markle. And what does this do? This only confirms our suspicions, doesn't it? And also the reason why. Why was it done? Why? What does this tell us about Meghan and Harry? What does this tell us about where baby Archie is from, after all? Catherine has both her names on all three her children's birth certificates. Anyway, I'm going to leave this up to you to think about. What I do want to talk about next is my continued search for the surrogate. Now, what I did was I went back to the video in which this lady in brown appeared at the church, all right? And I tried to make a better copy of her face than I had before, and I managed. Right, I enlarged my screen, I enhanced the pixels, and I managed to get a better copy. Right, so what I then did was I cropped and cut it in different ways, and I did a reverse search. Now, I actually cropped it 3 times in different ways, and before I did a reverse search, and I did 3 reversed searches with the different crops. And 3 out of 3 times, in other words, each time, it took me to site of the Organization of Islamic Conference. And then all 3 of them were in Turkish. Okay. So once again, like in one of my previous videos, and regardless of my video on Violet von Westenholz, I pursued the Turkey link. Remember, I told you that I discovered that Harry was in Istanbul, Turkey, when Meghan was at the opening of Soho House in Istanbul, Turkey in 2015. But now I also discovered that Harry and Meghan spent 5 nights in a private villa overlooking, and I know I'm going to mispronounce it, but I'm going to try anyway. It's called Yalikavak, Yalikavak. So I'm just going to say Yalikavak Bay and mooring in 2017. So for the people who had slammed me before for thinking that there was a Muslim connection to this whole surrogacy, I'm still saying that even if the person or persons are not Orthodox Muslims, I think that's how one would indicate it, there is some kind of link, because the lady that I think is involved with the actual birth of the baby, Denise Lester, the owner of the health and wellness store, who's also a midwife and who spent many years in Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and those, Pakistan, I think, Iran, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but she spent many of her working years in those countries. And then also, like I said before, where did Harry and Meghan meet that lady after hours? They met at Denise Lester's health and wellness store in London. So it keeps, no matter what I do, no matter how I crop that photograph, no matter how big I make it or how small I make it, it keeps taking me back to the same website or the same articles, and it is articles and the website of the Organization of Islamic Conference, and each one of the ones that it takes me to is actually written in Turkish. So I don't know what to make of it, and I guess you guys can make of it what you want. So that's just a bit of tea from my side. The next thing I want to talk about, and here I want to thank Yankee Wally for an article that she shared with me, and it's all about DNA. In the article that Yankee Wally sent me, it actually states, or it speculates, that Harry took 2 DNA tests when it came to Archie. The one test was done before Archie's birth, and it was done in vitro, and apparently that test came back as Harry not being the father. Apparently there was huge upset, and apparently, according to that article, there was another DNA test done later. I'm not sure whether it was done then after his birth. The article first indicates that it was done after Archie's birth, and then if you continue reading it, it seems to refer to it just being redone before his birth. So it's a bit confusing. Never mind. Apparently, the second test indicated that Harry was the father. Now, I think that article is a bit of a spin, and it's a bit of a fluff piece, and yeah, I'm not putting too much emphasis on it, and I don't really 100% believe what it's trying to tell us. And let me tell you why. I have a family member who had to take her son for a paternity test. And the standard paternity test, no matter what country you are in, if you are doing it for legal purposes, there are 2 ways of doing it. The way my family member had it done is both her, the father who said he wasn't the father, and the baby had to attend a laboratory where the baby's heel was pricked and a drop of blood was made on a card or pressed onto a card. Then they pricked the mother's finger and a drop of blood was punched on another card, and they pricked the father's finger and that drop of blood was put onto a third card, and the mother had to sign the baby's card and her own, and the father had to sign his card. Then it is sealed in front of both parents and sent off for DNA testing. The other method, which is also legally accepted, is when they actually take swabs from the inside of the cheek, and in that instance these swabs are sealed. Again, it's sealed, and the parents has to sign on the back of the little packet that it's sealed in. It's sealed in another envelope and then sent off for DNA testing. So that test in particular, or those tests in particular in South Africa, are the only tests accepted by a court. And that is why, if Britain is in any way the same as South Africa, and I want to mention here that our South African laws to this day, except for a couple of changes made here and there, our laws are still based on British laws, because we were at some point a British colony. So, like I said, except for a couple of minor changes, our laws are still based on British laws, and therefore I assume, I can go Google it, I'm sure, and I will, but I assume that British laws are very much the same. And that is why I am not paying too much attention or putting too much emphasis or really believing what this article is trying to make us believe. The other thing is that the minority of people are actually questioning whether Harry is the father. Those of us who believe that they have used a surrogate, I would say 55 to 60% of us do believe that Harry is the father. I would say about 30% believes that the baby has Meghan's DNA as well. and then the rest believe that the baby has neither Harry nor Meghan's DNA. So therefore an article to say that Harry is the father is really of very little consequence, particularly because the majority of us doubt that Meghan is the mother. As I said, although a portion of those believe that she is, and they only believe that she didn't birth the child. Now, I'm one of those who believe that this child most likely has both Harry and Meghan's DNA, and that they used a surrogate. In other words, that Meghan just did not birth the child, in which case a DNA test will show that both Harry and Meghan are the parents. So that is my personal opinion. That's my first choice, both of them being the actual biological parents. My second choice would be that Harry is the biological father and not Meghan. I sincerely doubt that Meghan Markle would go to the trouble of faking a pregnancy, of walking around with a very warm, uncomfortable fake bump for just over 10 months, just to have a child around that is not Harry's DNA. And that is also why I'm not dismissing Em's and Taz's idea, or the idea they put forward, that Harry may have made someone else pregnant either. Because that is the only circumstances under which I could see Meghan Markle taking a child on. And that would be if that child is somehow of royal blood and could mean something to her. And when I say mean something to her, we're obviously thinking of income. We're thinking of money. So if she is to raise even someone else's child or some baby who is not of her DNA or of her body, then surely it must be of at least Harry's DNA. And I'm saying this because she has proven herself to be someone who doesn't do anything for nothing or for free. Okay, folks, so that is what I have for you today. The search continues, and we will continue and bring you some more news later in the week. So until then, please take good care of yourselves so I can see you back next week. Please let those emails come. Keep sending them. If you discover anything that I've missed, please let me know. If any of you have received Samantha Markle's book, I'm really on the edge of my seat. I don't know how long it will take for it actually to be delivered here. They said hopefully before Valentine's Day. I'm not sure. But I'm really literally sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for that book. Because I think regardless of how much she is going to spill, I really think that there will be a couple of very interesting things in the book which we can then discuss after I read it. And I'll do it little by little, portion by portion, so I can dissect it properly, analyze it properly, do fact checks properly before I bring it to you. Anyway, like I said, enough from me for one day. I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.